The doctor was reflective as he spied from his room, one of the many in the imposing mansion, a most curious trio on the garden. A young couple, unmarried, at least for now, while they waited for the man's wife to die, finally setting him free. The shameful veil of the situation was easily lifted from the girl in presence of her lover, it seemed. But what captured the physician was not the scandalous affair, but their peculiar companion. The third figure stood tall, pale, perfectly posed, watching the lovers exchange flirtatious quips inspired by day drinking. He probably would not be outside during the day hours had it been any other situation. But it was a year without summer, and the strange weather that hid the sun for days on end allowed the strange creature to stay close to his guests. The doctor simply wondered in whose bed the curious host would slip into to plant chaos in the couple's lives, as he seemed to do everywhere else. A multitude of books and movies, especially made in recent years, have captured the public's attention by shining a loving light on the most terrifying creatures. For years, we've watched as monsters capture the popular imagination as the leads in romantic fantasies. Women and girls alike flock to theaters to discover the soft, warm, and golden interiors behind the scary veneer, inspiring many to study why is it that we rush to make excuses for the monster, even justify them, even prefer them? But in observing this phenomenon, there's another obvious detail we should explore as well. Is this for girls only? In years past, we saw two classic types of kissable monsters, the vampire and the beast. In Polidori's The Vampire, we see a vampire revamped. While nowadays it's common, even cliché, to name bloodsuckers as the sexiest abomination, and in this case the perfect embodiment of the hot but evil monster, for the longest they were dangerous, many times animalistic creatures of folklore, used to explain phenomena incomprehensible to many. However, they were picked out by romanticists as the perfect token to imbue with their complex dramatic ideas. The Vamps received a makeover and slowly but surely got the best PR team a monster could wish for. Nick Groom writes, "Vampires were animated by sublime terror and abject horror to become comprehensibly supernaturalized, even figures of inspiration, and they therefore have a place in theories of the romantic imagination, from the influence of psychology and the understanding of monstrosity to questions of self-identity and the emotions." In The Vampire, the monster's strangeness is his appeal. His polished appearance, lacking any warmth of life, and the entrancing depth of his gaze are capable of shaking polite society out of its boredom. But as they travel together, the young male protagonist, Aubrey, realizes his companion has a bone for cruelty. Aubrey separates from her strange companion, Ruthven, due to his lack of morality, in particular his seducing of a young woman. Eventually, they reunite, after Aubrey's love interest, Ianthe, dies during a mysterious attack that leaves Aubrey hurt. When Ruthven finds Aubrey, he nurses him back to health, consolidating their partnership. More things unravel around Ruthven, pushing Aubrey to a crisis, and while it's tempting to deviate into an analysis of the homosexual subtext, I pull Ruthven as a perfect example of the romantic vampire, and thus modern monster number one, a beautiful wrapping for the lowest desires, bound to end in tragedy. A morality tale to remind you that indulging will result in your downfall. The polite society members who fall for Ruthven's brand of allure are duped into opening their homes to a dangerous evil. The message is clear. There's an undeniable appeal in the different, especially when consumed in respectable domesticity. At the same time, breaking the implicit rules of socially acceptable behavior is bound to devolve into tragedy and madness. premarital relations, even the allowance of enamorment with a darker figure is lumped together with the forces of the dark that go as far as murder with selfish reasons like greed and jealousy. While the vampire has two male leads, the archetype written here continues to be the baseline for vampire in romantic stories, heterosexual and otherwise. When accompanied by a woman, the attractive villainous monster is sometimes studied as a liberating figure, representing the female lead's proclivities, yes, but also representing herself at her most liberated degree. In the first perspective, they are a representation of the woman giving in to her selfish desires as an act of empowerment. While society paints hegemonic femininity as framed by selflessness, the woman who picks the attractive monster betrays her surroundings by choosing desire, sexual fulfillment, and an actor of destruction. It is noteworthy, though, that this selfish decisions framing has been expanded in media. Where originally it was certain that this romantic inclination would result in tragedy if the ingenue did not settle with a rightful hero, now it is commonplace to see the female protagonist fight her happy ending in the monster's arms. The appeal of the vampires and other monsters with the aforementioned characteristics relies on giving in to desire, on your darkest impulses being packaged in the markers of attractiveness as society deems them: good looks, proper manners, wealth. A balancing act of having everything a young woman should aspire to and everything she should be disgusted by in one dangerous escapist package. These creatures can also serve as power fantasies. In probably the second most famous vampire story to date, Twilight, the central tension of the series is Bella's wish to become a vampire versus everyone around her, except Alice, advising her not to. While the most famous aspect of the series during its run was the romantic decision, the truth is Bella was never going to choose Jacob. Not only because she was in love with Edward, but because she was in love with his circumstances. Edward, being her partner, was a one-way ticket to an eternal life of power, affluence, and beauty. Your soul and family are small things to give up when you're offered the guaranteed door out of being unspecial. Essentially, the monster is a threat to societal order because he gives the heroine permission to be as unladylike as she wishes. But in classic stories, these monsters were harmful and violent. As much as we wish to reinterpret these tales to be empowering, and let me be clear, there's nothing wrong with finding enjoyment and even encouragement in such stories, we cannot deny their intent. The ideology is buried deep, and sometimes not that deep. Within them are evidence of societies terrified of the sensual, the uncontrollable, and the dangerous hiding under a glossy veneer of class, elegance, and attractiveness. The vampire, even after the makeover of romanticism, is a creature of destruction, of self and developed. They kill people, many times the most vulnerable, spread diseases and curses freely. To assume the monster is the lover is to accept devolving into divine pain and isolation. To assume the monster is the woman liberated is to assume that societies must suffer in her presence. Beauty and the Beast by Gabrielle Suzanne Barbeau de Villeneuve tells the story of a girl called Beauty. Her family consists of a single widowed father, 6 boys, 6 girls, all fallen from grace into poverty, which is not surprising when you have 12 children. When the opportunity to recover some of their lost fortune presents itself, Beauty's sisters ask their father for extravagant gifts. Belle, Beauty, the most beautiful of them all, asks for a rose. The following events occur similar to how they do in the famous Disney movie, with the father eventually being imprisoned in the Beast's castle when looking for Beauty's rose. The Beast proposes an exchange. He will let the man go if he was to send one of his daughters to stay with the Beast. The monster gives the father all sorts of luxurious goods to give to his children, but insists on him being honest about the situation the chosen daughter will live under. The father relays his horror story to his children, The boys wish to fight the beast, while the eldest daughters insist Beauty must sacrifice herself as she was the one to request the damning rose. The beast receives Beauty with a lavish ceremony, gives her father a reward, and showers the girl with beautiful clothing, food, and entertainment. He visits her every single night, and due to his difficulty to express himself verbally, Beauty assumes he's not very intelligent. So, when the beast asks to spend the night with her, Beauty refuses, admitting that as charming as she finds him, she cannot imagine being with someone like him. Meanwhile, Beauty dreams every night of a handsome stranger trapped in the castle and starts developing feelings for this dream man. The beast keeps showering her with luxury and attention. Her gratitude for the beast's solidarity and her affection for her dream man cause her internal conflict. Eventually, she asks the beast to visit her family. He concedes, but makes her promise to come back before 2 months pass, otherwise he would die of a broken heart. She leaves and is convinced by her family to extend her visit. When she returns to the castle, she finds the beast almost dead. In that moment, Beauty realizes she loves him. She brings him back from the brink of death and accepts to marry him. The next morning, after going to bed together finally, she wakes up next to the gorgeous man of her dreams. The beast transformed into her perfect prince. The main difference here with the story we grew up with is that Beast is mostly nice and considerate all throughout. While in other stories, the message of interior beauty is directed at the beast having to grow as a person to regain his good looks, it is the female protagonist who has to let go of her preconceived notions, and through appreciating the character of her suitor, she unlocks his physical beauty. It is speculated this message was a way to romanticize the unequal partnerships young women and girls would enter in the era. It is a 1740s short story after all, where their husbands could easily be decades older or simply unappealing in comparison to the teenage girls that would be propped up as ready-to-wed ladies. In our context, however, we can see how the Disney version of events and other similar stories laid the groundwork for the monster lovers of today. In the 1991 movie, Beast is the complete opposite to his written counterpart. He is rude, violent, insensitive, and careless, until his servants and Belle teach him to control his temper and earn love through his action, finally becoming beautiful on the inside and thus transforming his appearance. While Belle shows some minor signs of being off-put by the Beast's look, she is, justifiably so, more repelled by his character at the beginning of the story, changing the message from "young girls, you ought to love someone for how they treat you and potentially how much finery they can offer you and your family, not their looks," to "kindness can change an awful partner into a gentle, beautiful one," which then leads us to a mother monster. In Stepford Wives, multiple actresses play beautiful robots created to love and satisfy their owners' needs. In Subservience, Megan Fox plays a beautiful robot created to satisfy her owner's needs. When she takes her programming too far, she becomes a threat to the user. In Companion, Sophie Thatcher plays a beautiful robot created to love and satisfy her owner's needs. When she breaks away from her programming and realizes how she has been abusing her, she uses her abilities to be free, becoming a threat to the user. In many ways, these fembots are the perfect flip narrative to the dangerous vampire, the dream partner come true that proves to be much darker. But these tales did not have men in mind, at least not at the beginning. Stepford Wives was a horror story for women. Yes, some bare minimum men might watch it and say, "Oh babe, I would never exchange you for a perfect robot. I love you as you are," and recognize that his partner has humanity. But truly, the story is an extreme version of the loss of agency a lot of women experience and are expected to give in as they get married. The first movie adaptation of Stepford Wives tells the story of Joanna, an ambitious photographer who moves with her husband to Stepford, Connecticut. All the women in the community are perfectly groomed in a traditionally feminine way, and all the men belong to a men's association, which Joanna's husband, Walter, joins. The more Joanna discovers about her beautiful but vapid neighbors, the more convinced she becomes they need to leave. Eventually, she uncovers the men in the town have forcibly turned their wives into subservient cyborgs. Joanna's children are taken, and despite knowing it will probably mean giving up her agency and her life, she goes into the association to rescue her kids. Joanna is eventually turned into a submissive cyborg wife to her husband's satisfaction. Along with the rise in female independence, despite what the trad waves are suggesting, women are less likely to couple up with men than ever, let alone obey them. So the idea of an artificial submissive woman has been growing in popularity. At the same time, questions about the ethics of creating something, especially something that shares many characteristics with human being, the half of humanity that has been oppressed for centuries, with the only purpose of using them, has been part of the conversation. Movies who use the fembot to explore a possible new level to the exploitation of women and their adjacent creatures tend to end in one of two ways. A. She frees herself. She cannot conceive of a satisfying existence with the user who was okay with abusing her to satisfy his needs. Or B. She's destroyed. By trying to occupy the space of a real woman, she poses a threat, sometimes destroyed by the real woman, a triumph of humanity over machine. Others, she's destroyed by the man, who realizes how irreplaceable the real woman is. This type of ending is more interested in examining our fascination with machines and the risk we're putting ourselves in by giving them free access to our lives. The first option sees the fembot as an interpolation of the woman. In this situation, the fembot freeing herself means the woman freeing herself. Often, in those stories, the fembot is a response to a society where women finally get to choose not to couple up with men. Thus, a lot of lonely men delegate the women's responsibilities to satisfy and take care of them to the robot, one that also has the benefit of being completely customizable. It is impossible to frame the fembot as a victim of patriarchy and also pair her up with a man that uses her. It is conceivable to craft a story where a man against these practices can pair up with a freed fembot. However, there's no urgency from the creatives or the public to bring those stories to a mainstream stage, as we're just now seeing the wave of fembots fighting against oppression for personal agency, and to introduce a romantic subplot as possible additional motivation would risk undercutting the message, turning it into the female character going from one handler to another. The option of the fembot pairing up with another male robot poses a more interesting and perhaps safer route worth exploring. The second type of ending we've seen for these stories have the female robot killed, as I said before. In this, the fembot is often not humanized. While the liberated fembot is portrayed as possessing desires and even feelings to justify her right to freedom, the threatening robot aligns more with the Stepford kind. This robot is a threat to human relationships, to the natural order of families. She presents herself as the perfect, selfless companion, usually against a female protagonist that possesses certain ambitions or is simply preoccupied with a life outside of her relationship. It is worth mentioning that usually these creatures become a threat to strict following of their programming. They perceive the dissatisfaction of the men and try to fulfill them through eliminating the woman who they perceive as the cause. The elimination of the bot here is supposed to represent the superiority of humanity and our connection to each other over the technology that could be distracting us from it. There's no version of the fembot story that ends happily between the initial user and the bot. There's no fembot Edward Cullen, because unlike those monster stories, the core of the fembot cautionary tale is either that she's a victim of exploitation or that humanity has strayed from goodness and risks turning obsolete. Because she's very ugly. You can love Canela's daughter when you have your eyes closed, but when you open your eyes and see Miss Florentina, you can't love poor, tiny Marianela. Marianela, or Nela, as written by Pérez Galdós, is an orphan girl who is ousted from society and mistreated by the family she lives with, in great part because of her appearance. She's ugly, which is exactly why she loves spending time with and taking care of Pablo, who doesn't judge her since he's blind. Two important people arrive in their tiny town: Dr. Golfin, who offers to help Pablo with his blindness, and Florentina, Marianela's cousin and object of her envy, as she's beautiful and charming. Nella worries Pablo will reject her if he sees her, same as everyone else, but he reassures her that they will live together, that they're soulmates. Eventually, he does gain eyesight and falls in love with the beautiful Florentina upon seeing her, thinking it's Marianela. When he realizes his mistake, he still decides to pursue a relationship with the beautiful cousin. Nella feels betrayed and attempts to die. Dr. Golfin saves her, leaving her with Pablo and Florentina, who are now a couple. Marianela is still too weak and eventually perishes in between them. Marianela has a reverse arc to what we usually see in monster romances. Her love interest does not need to discover her kindness, innocence, and humanity despite her appearance. All of those traits were already clear to Pablo, but they were easily disregarded once her looks were deemed irredeemable. Pablo does not need to settle for a woman who is of excellent character but insufficient appearance, or like an ingenue in a gender reverse situation. Men in these stories often have their picks of women who are admirable inside and out. In some ugly to the point of monstrosity stories, the woman gets the guy, Betty la Fea, Jane Eyre, but not only are these stories mostly directed towards women, the female protagonists also have to suffer through deceit, abuse, and beratement before being awarded the love of the men that put them through it all. Endurance seems to be the ticket price for love when you're undesirable, even when your excellent qualities have already been proven. Still, you're not selling the man on being monster lovers. You're selling women on being loved despite their appearance, or you're selling women loving undesirable women. There are plenty of examples of female-adjacent creatures designed to be attractive to men. These, of course, might be more direct comparisons to a male-female monster-human romance. There's a whole cliche on the internet where people call out a piece of art created by men just by looking at the way the females are designed. But these are not women, at least not in the way that a woman's main component is humanity. They have humanness. They look similar to humans and have minds to process information, sometimes, but they are not meant to be understood or connected with. They're meant to be desired. Everything else is secondary, even love.